Well, I have to tell you that I am now standing between two really illustrious authors, one of whom I have known for many, many years, Miss Cara Black, Alka Joshi, who we just met today, but hopefully we will know each other for many years to come. And I'm so pleased that this is the first time that we've ever had two speakers in one. Okay, and why did that happen? Because I couldn't deny this. It was just, they're here. It makes sense. So we're going to do this a little bit differently today. Cara is going to speak first for about 20, 25 minutes. Then Alka is going to speak for about 20 or 25 minutes. And then we're going to have a Q&A and an open discussion, and you guys can ask them whatever you want to ask. Whether they will answer it or not, we don't know. Okay, but so for those of you who do not know who these two amazing women are, I love this. This is your piece, right? Okay, Cara Black, New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of 20 books in the private investigator Aimé Leduc series, which is set in Paris. But of course, may we? Cara has received multiple nominations for the Anthony and McCavity Awards, a Washington Post Book World Book of the Year citation, the Médaille de la Ville de Paris, which is the Paris City Medal. I was there for that.
I know you were.
I know. Which is awarded in recognition of contribution to international culture. Pretty cool. And invitations to be the guest of honor at conferences such as the Paris Polar Crime Festival and Left Coast Crime. You're just a criminal waiting to happen, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
I know. I've actually helped her look for places to hide dead bodies. Okay. I know, it's really fun. Okay, with more than 400,000 books in print, the Aimé Leduc series has been translated into German, Norwegian, Japanese, French, Spanish, Italian, and Hebrew.
And British.
And British English. Your books were 29 languages, is that what you said? Oh. I mean, imagine this. Okay. I am not going to read you all the rest of this about Cara because she's going to talk about herself anyway. But you see, and this is on the website, all this great information, okay? But she has a brand new book, a new thriller, which is not part of the Aimé Leduc series.
Yes.
Oop. What do you mean, yes? No, it's not, right?
No,
yes,
it is not.
It's not.
It
yes,
is
it's
not.
not.
It's a follow-up.
But it's a follow-up to your
3 hours,
3
in,
hours
Paris.
in Paris, which was a serious page turner, in case you haven't already read it. Okay, so this is what she's going to be talking about. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now, Alka. 29, it just blows my mind. I didn't even know there were 29 languages. Okay, Alka was born in Jodhpur, I've been there, Rajasthan, India. Has lived in the U.S. since the age of 9. She has a BA from Stanford University and an MFA from California College of the Arts. She ran her own advertising and PR agency for 30 years, which we realized we have in common.
Yeah.
Mine was only 13 years, hers was 30, okay? She doesn't look that much older though, does she? I'm just joking, okay? The henna artist, and she does not have her books with her.
But you can go to Smith & Sons, where I was today.
Where's
and
your little...
Here it shows her. She will sign books, and they will be there for you.
Right, so you can order them up now, okay? So
And also at the Red Wheelbarrow?
At the Red Wheelbarrow, right. Okay, but The Henna Artist was her first novel, and she's currently working on the 3rd book of the trilogy and a screen adaptation of The Henna Artist, okay? So all those advertising commercials and all that marketing copy has done you well, dear.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm getting off. I'm going to let these ladies talk because they're so much more intelligent than I am. Thank you.
Bon après-midi, everybody. Can you hear me? Thank you so much for coming. And thank you, Alka, for being here. We actually briefly sort of passed in the night at a book fair in San Diego, but we never spoke. But I have to come to Paris to meet her, right? But there's some great people. I know Judy, Hillary, who I follow you on Facebook. You lead such an exciting life. Honestly, she's a playwright. Craig, who writes you've got your restaurant, your second book. I mean, and excuse me if I'm not recognizing other people. You, I see in San Francisco at the market. So, and you. And
Just to be sure you're on camera.
okay, sorry. And so many familiar faces. So thank you so much. It's a thrill to be here. I just every time I get goosebumps when I stand here. I've done this several times because I'm in the Marais, where my first book was set, Murder in the Marais, which is available at the table in the back. I have all those books I brought from Smith & Son on the metro this morning in the rain and in my shopping cart. So of course you don't want me to take them back, right? So
You have to go home with a copy, okay, son?
and then you can also go get Alka's book when you go there to get a signed copy. But I get goosebumps here, being in the Marais, which is where it all started for me. So I am born in Chicago, Midwest gal, no French bone in my body, no French blood. But I did grow up and went to a French Catholic school with nuns who were French and taught us archaic French. So when I first got to Paris, I started speaking and I was really trying to use them, what the nuns taught me. And I remember speaking to this man on the Pont Neuf, asking directions, and I said, Monsieur blah, blah, blah. And finally he just put his hand on my shoulder and he said to me in perfectly clipped British English, young lady, you are using words we have not used since 1903. So obviously I learned archaic stuff from the nuns. But now, because I kill people all over Paris, I do have connections with the flics, the cops, and boy, there's a whole argot, that's a whole new language I had to learn. But so it all started for me in the Marais, on Rue de Rosier, and hearing a story about my friend's mother, who was a hidden Jewish girl during the German occupation. She was 14 years old, she wore a yellow star, lived on the Rue de Rosier, came home from school one day in 1942. Her family weren't there. She went to the concierge. What time are my parents coming home? They didn't know. Now in 1942, people didn't know what we now know, but she ended up living in the apartment, going to school, waiting for her parents to come back until liberation, and went to the Hotel Lutetia, the Chichi Hotel over near Bon Marché, and would walk in front looking, hoping someone came back from the camp with a sign, have you seen my family, with their name. Every day, as many, many people did. One day, a woman said, a young girl, she said, I saw your sister when we got off the train at Auschwitz. That was it. And when I heard that story, I never forgot it. So fast forward, my father, and Alka was asking me earlier, why do you write mysteries? And I went, it was my dad, who was a huge mystery reader, go figure. But he read really great mysteries, P.D. James, Niall Marsh, Agatha Christie. And there's a lot of meat to those stories. There's social content, there's issues, there's stories about women that we hadn't heard before. And so anyway, I told my dad about this story. Years later, I came back to the Marais, brought my son, put him to bed, and now I was a young mother. And I thought, what if I had a child in 1942? What would I have done? So I wanted to write this book, and he said, you've got to write this book. So I got into a class. My son went to preschool 3 hours a week, and my husband said, you've got all that free time. Start writing. So I did. Now, 21 books later, I've killed people in every arrondissement, multiple times. And during that process, I've always been taking notes, and I've got these wonderful little French notebooks, and they're in every pocket, and I go home and I look at them, and I read about things that happened during the war, because I was walking by the Senate the other day, and you see the bullet holes that are left there, and it's all over. And so I was reading about that, and then I saw this footnote, and I was just telling Alka about it. It was in a footnote in a history book. Hitler came to Paris for 3 hours. He left, never to return. And there was a date given, June 23rd, which would make sense right after the armistice, right? So he would come here. Well, I read an account by Albert Speer. We all remember the architect, the armaments guy who survived, and he said it was June 28th, and they were together. There's a picture of Hitler, Brecker, Speer, and the Eiffel Tower behind him. You can see it on YouTube. And they both gave different dates. And I said, there's something fishy there. My great, brilliant intellectual discovery, but it didn't make sense. And I thought, what if? Which is what we crime writers start thinking, what if, what if, what if? And I thought, what if somebody took a pot shot at Hitler? Why not? I mean, you know, and what if,
we all want to?
you know, kind of Inglourious Bastards rewound, kind of. And what if, you know, what if that was hidden? Oh, and what if the shooter was a woman? Okay, because we have always male shooters. So there was a whole regiment of Russian female snipers in World War II. They're well known, and one of them, who had 309 confirmed kills, was invited by Eleanor Roosevelt to the White House and given a tour and went on a junket. And the woman said, the sniper said, you know, she was telling Eleanor, she said, you know, they asked me strange questions, the American journalists. And Eleanor said, what do you mean? She said, well, they asked me what I was wearing. And she said, I'm wearing my uniform. You know, like they thought it was designer, or, you know, anyway. I don't know. So it just shows the mentality. Anyway, so I wanted to write about an American woman who was different from Amy LeDuc, my private detective. She would be a big bone gal. She would be from rural Oregon. She would, you know, make all the mistakes I make when I come to France. She would stand out like a sore thumb, and I'm going to put her in on a roof and see if she can shoot the Fuhrer. And spoiler alert, she misses. But there's a good reason for that. So that is 3 hours in Paris. And my editor was so encouraging. She said, write that book, it's your passion. And I said, I just need to figure this out. Well, it actually came out the month of when the pandemic hit. There was that book, I thought, in the water, you know, no tour, everything canceled, we can't go on planes, I can't come here.
Yeah, but everybody was reading.
That book sold better than any of my other books. I don't know, because we had to read, we had to stay home and read. So long story short, I thought I'm going to put Kate in some more trouble, because that's what you always do. You put them in trouble, and then you start making it worse. And I thought, what would happen? What was happening in, say, 1942? And I thought, well, Kate could have a new mission. And so that is what this one is, Night Flight to Paris. And there are several night flights in the book to Paris. And then I was having her, so she's been training people to use rifles up in the Scottish Highlands in those SOE, their manor houses. They're taken over and they're dropped. They take SOE agents, many of them women who have some fluency in French, who can operate a wireless set, and they send them over. They have like a shelf life of maybe 6 weeks, maybe. You know, they're really coming over for this. I mean, it's a suicide mission. And I thought, what if she had to come back to Paris? What if she had a target? And what if the person who was telling her she had to come back was a woman she trained with, who she owed her life to, who had saved her life? So she's got to come over. She also brings, she has a threefold mission. She has to bring penicillin cultures to the Pasteur Institute. Because when I was researching the 15th arrondissement, and I went to visit Hillary, who lives in the 15th arrondissement, I passed by the Pasteur, and I got a tour, and there were hidden Jews in the Pasteur Institute. And I said, why? Why wouldn't they go there? And they go, well, because they told the Germans it was full of contagious people. And so they wouldn't go near the Pasteur Institute, which was a fascinating way. So I got to use that. I got to use the Hotel Lutetia when it was run by the German military intelligence, the Abwehr. Oh boy, if those walls could talk, huh? Those stories in that hotel. And then, oh, yeah, she has to go to Cairo. You know, because I remember reading a book. It was actually a book my father gave me, The Key to Rebecca. I think it's by Ken Follett, or maybe not Ken Follett.
Not Sarah's key.
No, The Key to Rebecca, set in Tobruk wartime. oh, if it's not Ken Follett, it's another writer. I can't, someone look it up. So I remember the first line of that book. Just listen to this, it's so great. The Key to Rebecca.
Ken Follett.
Oh, Ken Follett, okay.
You were right.
I was right. The first line is this: the last camel died at noon. I just love that line.
What does it mean?
What does it mean? Well, the last camel died at noon, so you're in the desert and you're in trouble, right? I love that. So I said, well, I'm sending her to Cairo. And let's let her deal with Rommel and the desert fox and what was happening. And I hope I'm okay on time here.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I was doing this research, I read about all these women who performed roles, especially in Britain, during the war. And you know, Kate Middleton, who we just saw at the coronation, her grandmother was she worked on codes at Bletchley Park, where Alan Turing was and all that. So Kate Middleton's grandmother was employed there. Thousands of women were. They weren't necessarily high-level coding. They were doing the work of, you know, taking the codes, deciphering them, making sure it got on the right person's desk, and whatever. And so when Kate Middleton went to find out information on her grandmother, whoa, there was no information, because Kate Middleton's grandmother was one of the girls who were going to get married and have babies after the war. So they didn't need a file, and so there was no file made for them. And so I think Kate's going to take care of that, but we'll see when she's queen. But I found a book written by two sisters, British women who 18 and 19 years old signed up, as everybody did, and went and were trained, and they were both actually code workers. But they took the Official Secrets Act. They signed, you know, they never spoke about it. And they were sent to different parts of the world. They came back after the war, and they were, you know, sitting with their father, and they're like, oh, how's everything? Oh, fine, pretty boring. They did not know, the two sisters, until I think it was the early 90s, that each of them had been a code breaker in different parts of the world. They'd never told their husbands, nothing. I mean, these people, you know how to close their mouth. And so I thought that was fascinating. Anyway, they wrote a book. And how do we know, how did they find their information? Because it was the military. The military keeps files. So they could look and see what different things and what kind of strategy was being employed and what their work actually did, which was just fascinating. I mean, I was blown away. So I really wanted to write about women's roles, the untold stories of what women did. It was important, you know, and why don't we know about it, you know, and so that has been great. And women did so much, you know, and there's a woman who worked right here, Odette Pilpoul. There's a room named for her, Pilpoul, Sal Pilpoul. She worked here during the war. She was a functionaire, so she was administrative, a secretary here. And I know her son, and I met her son because of a woman who came to Adrian's Après Midi, who came up to me and said, I know Odette's son, would you like to meet him? I said, yes, please. And anyway, Odette, while she was working there, and her son was very small, she would get the lists. And the Germans would come in and say to the, oh, I want to know how many Jews are living on Rue de Bretagne. And she would go, oh, okay, that was her job. And she would, you know, forget to turn it in. It would be a couple weeks. Oh, I'm working on that. Oh, I need those names because there's, you know, someone would be a roundup. She would tell someone, and they would go alert the people on Rue de Bretagne, get out of Dodge, quick, you know, there's going to be a roundup or whatever. So that was right here. So that woman was later caught, sent to Ravensbrück, survived. And in Ravensbrück, there were many French women, and she was very careful to try and find bits of pencil lead and paper to write the names of the French women so she could come home, if she survived, to tell the families. And she did. And there's a description I read where when the Germans fled Ravensbrück, she's picking up these little bits of paper, trying in her shaking hands to keep it, to bring it back. And she brought it back to France. And I touched those archives, and it was an honor. But I don't mean to get emotional, but I mean, that's the kind of thing people did, you know, and I just really want to tell those stories if I'm allowed to or have the privilege of hearing them. So, so I'm getting I'm getting all teary. Excuse me.
I've never seen you get so well done.
Well, it's because it's Odette, you know. And anyway, but I mean, there are these stories, and I'm just again proud to be able to tell them. And I really think it's not all teary in my book. You know, there's a lot of action, and you will stay up at night, I hope, if I do my job. So I'm going to take a break and let you take over. Excuse me.
Thank you, Cara. That was amazing. It's going to be hard to follow that up.
No.
But we have many points of intersection, Cara and I, because we also, we all like to write about women who were not, you know, the heroes of the history, but in reality they were. It's just that they were sidelined in favor of the male characters. So my life changed in 2008. 2008 meant that there was a recession all over the world because of the huge mortgage lending crisis. And what it meant for my business, like Adrian, you know, said, I was running my own advertising and marketing agency. But what happened, of course, is that my business was going to slow down for about 2 years while the recession was afoot. And I thought, okay, what else am I going to do with my life? Well, my husband, Brad, who's sitting right here, had always said, you know, I think that you can write fiction. And I would say, no, I'm a hack. I just write, you know, advertising. I write marketing. I don't write fiction. He said, well, you're always making up stories about people as we're waiting in lines and, you know, at the movies and everything. And so I said, okay, so maybe what I'll do is I'll sign up for one of those MFA programs, Masters of Fine Arts in Creative Writing. And we were living in San Francisco at the time. You know, it was just a couple of blocks away, no problem. So I signed up for this program, and at the same time, I am taking my mother back to India because my younger brother had bought a condo in Jaipur, which is where we're from and where our extended family still lives. So, so he buys this condo. I take my mother there. She's in her 70s and she wants to reconnect with friends and family. And so, you know, it's just a fun time for us. But what she does during that period is she teaches me about her India, the India she grew up in. When she was 18, she was asked to come home and get married because her father had arranged a very advantageous marriage for her with a civil engineer. And he was over the moon because in 1955, the year that my parents were married, civil engineers were like doctors in a family. Everybody wanted a civil engineer in the family because they were helping rebuild India after independence. Independence had been in 1947. And so India was still in the throes of, you know, building infrastructure and schools and institutions of learning and so on. So my mother comes home, she gets married, she has 3 kids within 4 years. That is the end of her sort of freedom, right? She is then, of course, at the behest of the 3 of us kids, her, you know, her parents, everybody else, and she always has to look after other people. She doesn't have a career. She doesn't get to go back to school. So as we're going through and she's showing me the sari bazaars that she used to hang out, she's showing me how to shop for jewelry in India, how to shop for the best gold and that kind of thing. I realized that she has raised me to be completely different from how she was raised. She made sure that I would always have exactly the kind of life that I wanted, not what somebody else wanted. So I chose my own profession. I chose where I wanted to go to school. I chose my own husband. I chose, you know, everything about my life. And I thought I owe my mother a debt of gratitude for what she has done for me. And that was when I started to think about a woman in 1950s India who is living the life that she wants to live after deserting her husband and after 2 years of marriage. So Lakshmi is a woman in the henna artist. She's the protagonist. And after deserting her marriage, she goes on to forge this amazing life as a henna artist and as an herbal healer. And in so doing, you know, she starts this whole sort of series of events. There's a younger sister who shows up who is 13 years old and very rebellious, a sister that Lakshmi didn't know she had. There's an estranged husband who shows up. So there's all kinds of things happening in the henna artist. It would take me another 8 years to finish the henna artist after I had started it in my MFA program. And what happened is that one of my instructors sent it off to her agent, and her agent calls me from New York and says, I love this book, I want to help you get it published. And I said, okay, great, so when am I going to get published? And she said, you're not getting published anytime soon, you've got a lot of work to do on this novel. And she said, you know, I've been in this business for 30 years and I do not let a novel out of my hands until I know that it is going to be a bestseller, because you don't get a second chance. You publish first, and then if you are a bestseller, you get a second book and a third book and a fourth book. But you know, everything dies in the water if that first book is not good. So she kept me going for another 3 years with her, like, you know, do this, do that, cut out this, focus on this character instead of that character, blah, blah, blah. So after 3 years working with her, I said, oh my God, you know, Emma, I don't understand. We've been working together. I'm doing everything you're telling me to do, and now you're still not going to send it off to a publisher. She said, no. Now I think what you need to do is work with a professional editor, right? And I think, well, I thought that's what we were doing this whole time. And she said, no, I'm just an agent. So I start calling the people on her list. I start calling all the professional editors. I call the first one. She says, you're not ready to be published, and here are 15,000 reasons why. And so I thought, okay, wrong editor, I will try another editor. So I tried another editor on her list, and that woman said, no, you're not ready to be published, and here are 20,000 reasons why. And I just thought, well, this is a racket. I'm not going to do this anymore. So I stopped writing altogether. And then a year went by before I started looking at the notes again of all those editors, and I thought, oh, I see what they're trying to say. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you come back a year later to look at something, and then you go, oh, this is totally making sense now. Because at first it was just so raw. It was just like, oh, I don't want to go through another set of revisions. But I went through another set of revisions after reading all of those comments. And in 2 more years, actually, I think it was only a year, I sent it all back to Emma, my agent, and I said, Emma, it's been 9 years and 25 revisions, and I'm not doing this anymore. So I said, if you don't want to send it off to a publisher, then I quit. And she goes, well, that's okay, because you and I have never had a contract. You could have gone to anybody else in all this time and said, here's my book. So she said, but don't worry about it, I'll send it off. So she sends it off. HarperCollins buys it. And then I think, okay, we're off and running. But now I have a new editor, and she has changes that she wants me to make. So, okay, I'm going to make them because I have a signed contract now, and I have quit working in advertising and marketing because I think this is going to be my full-time career. So a year later, you know, she and I have come out with a final draft, and it is going to the printers. Once your book goes off to the printers, you have about 6 months before you're actually going to see your release date, and you're going to be able to go into bookstores and libraries and see your book on the shelf. Well, during that time, one of my other characters from the first book, from the henna artist, there's a little 8-year-old street kid named Malik, and he keeps telling me, I want you to write my story. I want you to write you got all those pages cut out of the henna artist, and I'm in those pages. So I really want you to write that story. Well, so I start writing his story. I actually had another project that I was starting to work on, and that's the 4th book that I'm working on now. But at the time, I'm working on Malik's book, and that comes out to be The Secret Keeper of Jaipur. I'm 20 pages into it. My agent sends it off to the editors at the publishing house, and they buy it right away. And my agent said, you know, it's very unusual for a second book contract to come out before your first book is even on the shelves. And meanwhile, I'm just like, I'm cranking. And so then my release date for the henna artist is coming up while I'm working on book number 2. And that was, just like your situation, on March the 10th, 2020 was my release date. And on March the 11th, 2020, right, just shoot me now.
Yeah.
Right, I just thought, oh my God, I can't believe this. Now it's been 12 years since I first started working on the henna artist, and I'm not gonna go anywhere with this book. So, you know, I just thought, okay, the libraries start shutting down, the bookstores start shutting down, Amazon stopped shipping out books.
Yep.
And I just thought, okay, how does anybody get anywhere with this stuff? But then I reached out to my social media. I had started Instagram, and I'm as old as a hill, so it was very hard for me to understand social media. But I went on YouTube, and I thought, okay, how do you get on social media? How do you do the makeup for your videos? How do you do this? How do you do that? All of that stuff I learned. So I reached out to my social media and I said, you guys, I've been telling you about my books, I've been telling you about India, I've been telling you about our cooking, and I'm telling you about the henna work and herbal remedies. So please, why don't you call me and talk to me about my book? Because I don't have anybody to talk to about my book. And so people started responding. So to date, I have done 900 book clubs on Zoom, because every single night I would do 2 or 3 or 4. So yes, and if you have a book club and you want me to talk to you, I am always available on Zoom.
I am too.
Yay!
That's what we have to do, right?
That's what and it's actually much more convenient that way. Then we don't have to travel, but we can still be in all of your living rooms. So then people start responding, and then a few months later, that's when my editor calls and says, "You're not going to believe this, but Reese Witherspoon loves your book, and she's going to name you one of her book picks for 2020." So it all paid off, all those years, all of those drafts. So then suddenly the movie production people start calling me, and I don't know anything about movies, and so I get an agent who is in Hollywood, and she starts looking at all of the different folks who are calling, and she has me Zoom in with them. And there was a team that I just loved and whom I ended up working with. And that was Michael Edelstein. He runs his own company. He was the producer for Desperate Housewives, for CSI, all of those kind of places. And then Frida Pinto, the actress, and Miramax TV. So all these people came together and as a group and said, we want to buy the option. And Michael, the first thing that Michael said to me is, he said, we see the henna artist as an Indian Downton Abbey, because it's got the upstairs, it's got the downstairs, it's got, it's lush, it's creamy, we can do it all. And so I said, sold. You guys, I'm not even going to talk to anybody else. You guys are it. So it's in production at Netflix right now, and yay! So Cara also has several books in development right now, or in the option stage.
But it's always like this in my world.
Yeah. You never know what's going to happen. So anyway, so I am at the point now where the second book came out, it became a bestseller, and now the third book is what I want to talk to you about, The Perfumist of Paris, which is why I'm here in Paris today. So The Perfumist of Paris then focuses on the third main character. Oh yes, Adrian's going to show you a picture of the book. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was supposed to bring books. I don't have books. But in The Perfumist of Paris, it focuses on the girl who was 13 years old in the first book, in The Henna Artist. Now she is 32. She lives in Paris with her French husband, and she has 2 girls, 7 and 9. She is working in the perfume industry. And people keep asking me, why the perfume industry? Yeah. So she works in the perfume industry because it's glamorous, it's Paris, and because she's really good at mixing paints and all kinds of ingredients for the henna that she used to do for her sister. But also because when you come from a South Asian country like we do, you are inundated with scents every single day, right? Right? And so you get off a bus, you get off a plane, you get off a train, and you are going to smell curry, you're going to smell the hair oil from your conductor or your tuk-tuk driver or your rickshaw guy. You're going to smell all of the flowers that are blooming around you. I mean, India is a very colorful, very robust place, very rich in all kinds of food and lifestyle and saris. Sensory overload. Thank you. So that's why Radha, as a 32-year-old woman, she is much more attuned to senses, fragrances, aromas than somebody else might be. And that this is why she is a natural for perfume. When she's working in a perfume lab, and it takes years and years and years, about 10 years for somebody who works in a lab to become a master perfumer. That is a real treasured profession. It is something that requires chemistry. Most perfumers have a chemistry degree, which I didn't realize. I thought it was just blending, some nice fragrances together and then calling it perfume. No. And there are actual places of education where you learn how to become that's all you do, is you learn how to become a perfumer here. And then in Versailles, there's a perfume museum that I ended up visiting. I came out to Paris to talk to master perfumers. I went to Lisbon to talk to master perfumers. I went to Grasse to talk to people who are bottling and compounding fragrances. And of course, in New York City, I talked to folks there because that's the perfume capital of the United States. So in doing so, what?
New York.
New York, yes, of the United States.
Okay.
So in any case, I learned about all of these things. They got into the book, and Radha is working her way towards becoming a master perfumer. And she is assigned a very major a project, and she's working on how to make the ingredients work. She knows she is missing one key ingredient, so she calls up her sister Lakshmi in India and says, here's my problem. And Lakshmi says, why don't you come down to India? We will go to the houses of the courtesans, the same ones who taught me how to paint with henna. They know all about how to seduce and entice through fragrance, so they are going to teach you. And sure enough, the two sisters go to the courtesans, and the courtesans do give Radha the exact ingredient that she's looking for. And then Radha goes back home. She opens the door to her Paris apartment, which is in the 6th, by the way, right by the Saint-Germain area.
That's okay then.
Yeah. Cara does not like the 7th, so that's why.
Sorry if I offend anybody.
Okay, so it's in the 6th, and as soon as she opens the door to her apartment, she sees her husband Pierre sitting on the couch, but next to him is the boy that she gave up for adoption when he was only 4 months old. And her husband knows nothing about this, and she has not wanted to know anything about that boy because it's so painful for her to have had to give him up. But she was only 13 at the time, and so she couldn't sustain a life where she could care for him. So he is there. He doesn't know that that's his mother, but he knows that somehow she is related to the family in some major way. And so the rest of the novel is really about her coming to terms with, and how maybe she might come to terms with the fact that she had this baby. She needs to figure out, what she can, how she can make it all work with the new family that she has. And every time I'm in a gathering like this, it's really interesting. A lot of people will come up to me and give me their adoption stories. There are more of them than I can possibly write about. So either from the point of an adoptee, adoptive parents, or adoption experts, or the birth mothers. And there's so much pain there, but there is also so much joy, in rediscovering what your family could have been or is about. So anyway, so that is The Perfumist of Paris, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And so it's been a wild ride, and I think that it's lovely that I am able to share it all with my husband, because he was the one who forced me into becoming a writer. So many years I didn't listen to him, but I'm glad I did. And because he's a writer, he is also my first editor. So he will look at all of my first drafts and go, okay, here's kind of what you need to do. So I am on my 4th book now, which is probably one of the reasons that I am here. It's going to take place in Paris and Florence and Barcelona and Prague and India. So it's going to be a lot more fun, and this is the project that I set aside to write book number 2. So anyway, thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Adrian Leeds, for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure, I can tell you.
Yes, and for Cara for sharing the stage. And now I think what we will do is entertain questions.
Yes. But I want to. Can I start off with a question I want to ask Alka?
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about women whose stories we haven't heard, you know, and about how you wanted to tell the story about your mother, and you said something about heroes, and it reminded me of a quote, which of course I wrote down and don't have with me, but it's about, anyway, it's about heroes are not people doing great big things.
Right.
It's doing the small, quiet things that maybe we don't notice. Can you talk
Right.
about that? Because I think that's so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, I think that, for so long, women have raised families. They determine the course of the next generation. But I think that they are unsung heroes. And so I wanted to write about just ordinary people, ordinary women living in 1950s and 1960s and 1970s India, who are just going about their lives. And they're in all stratas of society. They're wealthy, they're middle class, they're lower class. They are just going about their business. They are feeding families, making sure that everybody's okay. And I think that these are our unsung heroes that I think we women really feel the need to write about because we haven't read them since when we were little kids. We didn't read about these women, right?
Right, yeah. I mean,
Is that
there's
kind of
stories? Yeah, exactly. I mean, we didn't hear these stories, but of course the work was done.
Yeah. But now you're writing about them in a murderous context.
As one does.
Oh, sure. Everybody.
So tell us, where does that inspiration, I mean, your dad was giving you murder mysteries to read and everything, but how did the first Amy LeDuc character come about? How did that first story come about?
That was great. Well, I knew I wanted to write about my friend's mother, a hidden Jewish girl. I did not know how to write fiction. I didn't know how to tell the story. And then again, I got into this writing class. And then when I was talking with my dad, he goes, "You need to read P.D. James, An Unsuitable Job for a Woman."
Yeah, that was good.
An unsuitable job for a woman was to be a detective. And I was like, wow, and that opened my eyes because she was a smart gal. She was taking something over. She not only had, men to deal with, but clients who wouldn't trust a woman who would give her money to do this. And there were social issues, and I really liked that. And so I thought, you know what? I could use the framework, the structure, like you hang your clothes on, right? Like one of those, it's like a shoe tree, but it's like clothes. It could be a framework to hang this story. Because I didn't know how to go in, Well, you start off, okay, with a murder. Why did the murder happen? And it's mysteries are about unpeeling the onion. We're getting back to what really happened. Meanwhile, the villain, if it's really good villain, and that's the ones we like to read about, is orchestrating. I do a workshop on the architect of noir, where you got a good villain who's orchestrating this story.
Yeah.
We don't know that at the beginning. But he's putting all these roadblocks and obstacles in the way, and the detective's trying to play catch up and figure it out. So I loved that, and I thought you can tell so many stories.
Yeah. And you're talking about the human condition because even your detective has layers of life, layers of understanding, and layers of being that you can add into the story. And that's what P.D. James did so well. See, my secret passion is to write mysteries. So my fourth book actually has mystery in it, and I'm finally sort of just getting into it.
Already, a convert. Okay.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, we all like to. I mean, mysteries are. Think of a fiction, a good, literary fiction. There's a secret at the core, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a mystery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if you guys were plotters or pantsers, and I assume as a mystery writer you've got to do some plotting, but what do you think?
I'm a planter. So I just start with the part of Paris. I start with the Marais. I start with the Bastille. I start with it and I start, what would happen here? What kind of crime happened here? I take my friends, the cops, out to lunch. Would you have done this? Did this happen? Blah, blah, blah. And then I think, why would my detective, Amy LeDuc, be involved in this? What would be organic to the story? So I get about 100 pages, and then I look at it, I just write, and then I go, is there some meat on these bones? Is there something here? And then I think, Yeah, because there usually is. And then I timeline. So I cheat. I don't outline. I put a timeline. Okay, Amy is here and she's wearing leather pants. Okay, 30 pages later, she can't be there and she can't be wearing a leather skirt. She's got to have the pant, you know, so I can adjust it. So that's what I do. You know. Some people, do you outline?
No, I don't. And I'm complete pantser. So for me, it starts not with a place, but with a scene. So in that scene, I might see all of you guys in a scene. I might know that you have a conflict with the guy behind you. I might, you know, I see exactly what you're wearing. I see what the colors in the room are. I see whether there are lights in the room or a candle. So that's the scene that comes to me, and then I start figuring out what the people are doing, where they're moving, you know, how they're moving around. And I don't write anything down for like months. I am just working in that scene. I'm thinking about it, and then maybe that leads to another scene that I'm thinking about. And the characters are progressing. They're growing. They're, you know, blending more and more with each other. Finally, in about 3 months or so, I'll start writing things down on my iPad.
You can keep all that in your head?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But, you know, I also have my iPhone. I'm talking into my iPhone, so I walk and I cycle or I swim. And as I walk, the characters start moving. So it's very important for me to do that kind of thing and then to write at the same time. There's something else that you said that
well, you just said that, and for me it comes when I have a washing machine and a dryer, a stackable, and when I take the wet clothes and I put it in the dryer, there's something about that wrist, that elbow motion, they talk to me.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm like, oh, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
The villain did that to me once. It wasn't the villain I thought was the villain.
Right.
But it's this.
Right, exactly.
Sarah, that's really unusual. Okay.
That's my life. I don't know. That's what happens.
Right. With me, it's not really in the elbow. It's more in the legs moving. Yeah. No, but there is something that you said about looking at it and then figuring out, you know, is she wearing the pants here? Is she wearing the dress here? So this is something that we learn as we go through more and more revisions, as we become more practiced as novelists. You figure out whether you are tracking your people in the space and in the sort of environments and clothing that they're in. Because when I first started out, I would have people just floating in the universe. Like, people would go, well, where are they? You know, I would just have two people talking, like, where are they? Are they grounded? Are they, you know, in the air? And then also I would forget about the tracking. Like, okay, this person was drinking absinthe here, and all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, they're drinking coffee instead. So yeah, you have that continuity thing that happens automatically now. The more you write, the more you write.
Right. I also do it when I do a rewrite. I do several rewrites, several phases, and one rewrite is about sensory detail, because you were talking about that and that coconut smell from the hair of the bus driver. Yeah. But I will try and go through, and especially because I write about Paris, and I think our job is to bring the readers to wherever they are, wherever it is, and I will think about the smell, you know, on this street, in that building. Judy just gave me this incredible book. Look at this. She found it at a flea market, 1944, and we both opened it and smelled the old paper. Yeah. You know, this is amazing stuff. So, I mean, you got to use every sensory detail, and I try and get a sensory detail in every page, because you're bringing them to India or wherever, and they need to. Yeah.
And it's one of the comments that you get back from readers all the time. I felt like I was there with your characters exactly where you were writing it. So that's a wonderful feedback, because that is where we're always trying to get our characters to be.
You know, Cara was once, well, many times, talking to me about her characters as if they are absolutely 100% real.
Oh, they are.
But they are.
See?
Yeah. We live with them, we breathe with them, we eat with them, we shower with them. We know these people better than our own husbands.
I went window shopping with Amy Leduc when she was pregnant, because I wanted to see what the French pregnancy clothes were like. And I'm like, she's gonna wear that. And people were looking at me, you know,
You were talking to her?
I was talking to her. I said, well, this would, you know, no, this is they have the coolest baby bump, little leather jacket. It's so cute. But, well, Well, because they're real to us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they really are. And it's sad when we finish a book and we're no longer with them. It's kind of sad. So, yeah.
Or we kill them, when we
Yeah, you've done that a few times.
Yep. Yes.
I just want to say how much I appreciate Amy Leduc. I actually read 3 Days in Paris first, and it's still my favorite of your books.
Thank you.
But I love the way that she goes around in different areas of Paris and talks to the different nationalities, just all the different types of people that don't usually get mentioned when you're talking about Paris. But the other thing that I was curious about was why computer security? Is there something in your life that led to that choice for Amy?
Well, people who know me know that I am technology challenged. So no, not really. But when I started writing in 1993, which is when I did, I thought, well, she's a detective. First, she was going to be an actress, but no, that's stretching it, But I thought she'd be a detective and she wouldn't be finding missing persons, which is based on the real Duluth detective on Rue Duluth. I thought she has to do something cool and cutting edge. And the San Jose Mercury, a wonderful newspaper in California, when it used to be real thick and great, had an article interviewed a woman, computer forensic gal, who had her own firm, one of the 3 firms in the country in 1993 that did computer forensics. So we've, come a long way. And I thought, well, there we go. That's cutting edge. That's fascinating, because I knew nothing. I got to talk to her. She agreed to be interviewed. She moved up to Seattle. We had this big conversation, and she told me how boring it was, and anyway. And she told me this, and then I found out my neighbor on my street where I live in Noe Valley is a French programmer and was working in Paris in 1993. And I'm like, come over for dinner. Talk to me. So he was great. He's always like, I'll run something by him and he'll go, don't forget, she needs a router. Remember routers? Because we got to keep it real in 93 or 94. Right. And I get questions like, was Wired magazine available at the time?
Yeah.
People get into that. So it is. So I do have to go back there.
Yeah.
And that's why. And who knew that it would be what it is now?
I saw the Leduc detective sign the other day, and I thought, did they get that from you, or did you get that from them? I was like, ooh, that's kind of cool if they got it from you.
No, I stole it. I stole the whole thing. I stole the story. It's Duluth Detective, and Martine owned it for 50 years. She inherited it from her father, who got it from her grandfather, so I stole the whole story. I know her. She's very nice. She retired after 50 years. Her sons did not want to take it over.
It's defunct?
No, it's they still have the sign.
I know, it's so gorgeous.
And Martine said, I just can't do this anymore, and my husband has health issues, so she sold it to another detective. So it is in the detective world.
Yeah.
But I have gone there, and Martine was so wonderful. Duluth detective. Yeah. People always say, I just saw Amy's agency. I say, yeah.
I've asked this question before, but I'm going to ask it one more time. Perhaps you can bring Claude back, maybe with Kate Reese's in your 3rd book.
Claude, Amy's grandfather?
Yes, he'd be available then.
Claude fought in the Liberation. Yeah. I just found out,
Yes.
because he spoke to me.
I think you should. Just a thought.
Claude, I helped in the Liberation, liberating the Batignolles, the 17th arrondissement, Mairie, the town hall.
Yeah.
By going there with his pal, and when the Germans were leaving, they went down in the cellars and they drank all their champagne. That's how Claude assisted liberation. So he's ripe for a lot of stuff.
Wow.
Oh, great.
And going back to the business side of your efforts, how has electronic publishing or we can include Amazon, and audiobooks also perhaps.
Oh my gosh. During the pandemic, what was so great is that even though we couldn't get physical books because, we thought at that time that maybe you contracted, COVID from touching things, and we didn't realize it was an airborne thing. But because of that, the audiobook and ebook sales shot through the roof for all publishers. And so what they found out is that people have actually changed their behaviors so that they do rely more on audio and ebooks, even though now we can buy books. In general, all three of the formats did really well pre-pandemic or during pandemic and after pandemic. But yeah, my audio sales are huge for the books, huge.
Remember there was distribution snafus, we couldn't get things, so yeah, I mean, it just blossomed.
If it's digital, it's really easy to get, so yeah, those are huge.
Did it change the way that you had to interact with publishers?
No, not at all. So what happens is, and I'm sure yours is a similar story, your agent negotiates the sales of each different format with your publisher. And in my case, my agent sells all the formats except for stage and the movie rights. Those are the two that she holds back for us so that people have to approach us separately to buy those, because those are the big kahunas. The other things, the publisher has the rights to all of those. They give you a percentage of everything that's sold. And then for foreign rights, my agent also sells the foreign rights to the publisher, and the publisher can then entertain all the offers that are coming in from different countries, and they sell those rights to them, so they resell them, and then that foreign country can translate it into whatever language they have.
Did you get to pick the audio, the speaker?
I did. So this was so cool because what happened is that for the henna artist, my publisher sent me 5 different actresses who were narrating the same passage. And I listened to all of those, and I even had my husband listen to them, and we did not hear Lakshmi's voice, Lakshmi, the main character. And it's all told in her first person, so it has to be, her voice has to really sing. So I didn't want to be a diva, so I didn't call the agent, I didn't call my publisher, and I didn't want to say, I don't like any of these voices. And I thought, okay, let me just take the responsibility. I went on Audible and I listened to the first 5 minutes, which you can for free, of all of the books that are written by Indian people. And I heard her voice. And then I went back to Harper Audio and I said, hey, could you please have her also read this passage? And they did, and she was absolutely perfect. So she was so good that she took us to the top of the New York Times bestseller list, also in the audiobook category, which I didn't even know existed. But there are ebook bestseller, there's audiobook bestseller, there's, so yeah, it was so we saw the New York Times hardcover bestseller and then the audiobook bestseller of The Henna Artist in the same week. That was really cool.
It's pretty darn cool. Yeah.
Is that also your experience with publishing?
Because with the Amy books, I don't know. They picked an actress, and I never listened because I have Amy with me all the time, so I do not want to hear another voice. So I just didn't want to. But they said, because we want to know, do you want to have a different voice for Kate? I said, why not? And they sent me several. And the woman who we picked was great. I tell you, people are constantly tweeting about this.
Yeah.
They're saying she's really good. She's done a lot of really big people, and so I guess I was allowed to be up there. And she's really good.
Yeah.
People love her. I only heard the sample, but I think she's good.
I'm the only one that disagrees with that.
Okay.
I started your audiobook and I couldn't stand it, and I went to the real book instead because I didn't like. She was doing men's voices instead of just reading it. She was creating, doing it as theater, and it just was like, no, I don't want anybody else to read this in for me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I haven't listened, but I believe you.
I actually didn't do the audiobook because I didn't want to hear it. It was really weird.
Yeah.
So the voice is clearly important.
Voice
is
super
very important for the sales.
I think it's best though when the author reads it.
Not necessarily. You know why we think that way? Because we're not actors. And a really good narrator, the one who really sells your book, is an actor. And they know how to inhabit all the different characters of your book.
I guess that's different if it's it's a memoir. If it's a memoir or it's written, it's an autobiography or a memoir,
Yeah.
then you want it to be in that voice.
Right.
Right?
Right. And luckily, these aren't our memoirs. Otherwise, we'd be
No,
killing
that's right.
people and doing henna art on everybody.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
How involved are you in the scripting of the series or movie?
Oh yeah, we were talking about this. Okay, so I thought, oh, I've written the book, so I should probably also help write the screenplay. Yes. And so when I was talking to my agent, I said, can I also write the screenplay for this? And she said, well, do you have any, experience doing screenplay writing? I said, no. She said, well, then it's best not to. We can suggest it to them, and let's see what they say. So she suggested, and they said, does she have any screenwriting experience? My agent said no, and they said, no, absolutely not, no. So what happens then is that you find out they actually pay you more as an author to go away. And there's a reason for that, right? Because if you wrote something and then you're going to see it on a screen, big screen, little screen, you're going to be so upset because they have to change some of the characters, or they have to extend a scene in order to make
Location.
Or location.
Location is a big one.
Yeah. So they have to, because screenwriting is very different. What you see in mine is going to be an episodic series, so it's 6 to 8 episodes. Well, the book is only 300 pages. So how are they going to extend that? They're going to have to add scenes and characters that aren't necessarily there. So it's less painful for you as an author not to see every episode, not to see every written draft, but just to say, okay, you guys take it from here and do whatever magic you need to.
It's a different animal. It's a different animal.
Final approval.
We also then at that point lose our ability
You
to
kind
get
of wash your
final
hands of
approval.
it. You take
Yeah.
the check and you leave.
Yeah. Now, in my case, it's been really cool because they will involve me in the process. So every now and then they'll say, okay, let's do a Zoom, and Netflix is there, my producers are there, everybody, and then they're like, Alka, here's where we are, and can you give us some input into what was the past life of this character? What was the previous life before the book started, and all of that. So I can give them background just because I know these characters inside and out. So those are the kinds of discussions that we have. Otherwise, they never ever once say, Alka, we've rethought the whole process. We'd like you to write the series.
Yeah, I think that's very special. Very, very special that you get that input. My friend Mick Herron, he did Slow Horses. That's on
Oh,
Apple.
we love Slow Horses.
So Mick is my buddy, and I was saying they were filming this with
Oh my
Gary
God.
Oldman.
Yeah.
Oldham, yeah.
Oldham.
And I said, how is it? Because, he said, well, Apple, I said, did you get to go to a meeting? He goes, I got to go to a meeting. I said, well, what were you doing? He goes, they asked me questions. And I said, how many? 3. And then I had to leave. But I guess when you have Gary Oldham,
Yeah.
who can be Jackson Lamb,
Oh, yeah.
it's fine. So but if I see him again when I go to Bristol, I'm going to ask him. But, it's like you just give it up and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
But that's Apple.
hard.
That's
It's gotta be
Apple.
hard.
I hear Apple's pretty. Oh, this is recording, so I won't say it.
I have a question. What do you think AI is going to do to your books or anybody's books, or any authors coming up?
I don't know. I think we need to have a proof that we write books. We just keep, handwritten notebooks. That's what I'm going to use. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I just want to read a book, and I think I can tell when it comes from the heart or when it comes from a person's experience. I just don't know. And if a machine can do that,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that we're not there yet, but I don't know if we could be there, that the AI experience could be more from the heart, could be more soulful than it is currently. Currently, I don't think it's there. But, eventually it might get to that point. I think AI is great for business stuff, for business letters and, summary reports and things like that, but not so much for fiction yet.
Yeah, you can do nonfiction, no problem.
It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, right now, AI is like when you're dictating into your phone, you know, or you tell Siri something, and it all comes out a little mishmashy. You know, things like don't make any sense. To me, that's like right now what it is to fiction. Hi.
Just to address the AI question, the Writers Guild strike is on now.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we are asking for is that producers will put in the contracts that they will only use human written stories, and we're getting pushback on that.
Wow,
We're
really?
getting pushback, but that is one of the issues now. So it's coming up pretty fast
So,
and pretty strong.
so they want to use that now so that they have to pay them less, or they'll save money doing AI, or?
Well, they want to save money, you know, it's always about money.
Wow.
So AI is definitely part of the negotiation and part of the sticking point, because they use AI, maybe they want to use AI, but they don't want to commit to not using AI. So
Well,
it's already out there as an issue.
Well, I like the fact that they're going to put that in the contract, you know, that you have to use human
Maybe,
labor.
but it's just, you know, I mean, we're on strike, so who knows if that's going to be in the resulting deal. But,
What do you guys do? What kind of screenwriting are you doing?
I wrote movies for television for several years, so I did a lot of adaptation.
Okay. And did you ever have an author show up at work with a pistol? Like, no, you can't change it.
But let me tell you something. After you turn in the first draft, they don't want us around either.
Yeah.
So what is the writer's room really like?
I didn't work in the writer's room because I wrote movies for television. I didn't write series, so I wasn't in the writer's room. But I was there to come in, you know, to get notes. And basically you give notes, they give you notes, and if you don't agree with them, you can be replaced. It's you know, it's that easy. So it's kind of cutthroat, but
Wow.
But yeah, I always tried to be very respectful of the original material. But you're right, when you put it into a movie, a lot changes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
You just try to be respectful.
Yeah. And you have different audiences, right? Like the audience for a book is going to be different than the audience for a movie or a TV series. So you're actually going to gain some audiences for the screen adaptation that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And sometimes those screen adaptation lovers are going to go, oh, well, maybe I should read the book instead. You know, some nice little crossover.
But that just made me think of Bridgerton, the one, you know, the Regency or whatever, Bridgerton. I mean, that changed from, it was like a romantic Regency in the 90s or 80s, and now it's like this whole other, you know, persona of, you know, whatever. And it's like, she was like, the woman was like, these are my books? Okay, you know, I'll take that check, you know. But it was so interesting how you changed it for modern day or the present.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Actually.
Hi.
I have a system called BookBub.
Yeah. BookBub.
And every once in a while, randomly, there will be $1.99 for this particular really popular book. So, doesn't that hurt?
No.
I don't know how that works.
No, it's really good.
It's very good. It's volume, okay? It's just volume. So whether, like if you're at Target and you get something for a lot less, you'll probably have millions of people buying that instead.
Because then it's the ripple effect. Maybe you read a Amy LeDuc or you read the henna artist, you go, oh, she's written more.
Right.
Okay, I'll pay extra or I'll pay full price. So
Right.
that's kind of, it's what Amazon does too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have to feel guilty about
No, please do not feel guilty about buying any of our books on any price.
Any Amazon deal of the day, BookBub pick, please.
Yeah, buy it all. And by the way, we don't do the BookBub stuff. Our publishers do that.
We have
Our
nothing
publishers,
to do with it.
Yeah.
I don't even know when it happens.
We don't even know when it. Well, you know, they'll tell us. They'll say, if you want to promote this on social media, here is what we're doing, and this is the week that we're doing it in. Yeah, and so we do.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, I'm curious your thoughts on how important social media is now. You specifically commented that you're
So the question is, yeah. So the question is, do you have to have a social media following now, or do you have to be on social media as a new author now?
And have a platform.
And have a platform. Absolutely, absolutely, you do. And Instagram is where all the book people are. The book clubs are there, the book lovers are there, so you definitely want to be on Instagram. And when you get on one platform, you can easily say, I also want to be on Facebook, I also want to be on Twitter, and you just click one button and it all populates the other social media as well. So they've tried to make it super, super easy, but in the first couple of years, I spent 3 hours every day. After all of my Zooms were done, I would spend 3 hours into the night doing social media. And it just takes what it takes.
But you've got to, and she does it very well, and I think you kind of enjoy it, or you wouldn't do it. You don't have to do it if it really bothers you.
Yeah.
I have friends who can't do it. Oh, Facebook, no,
Yeah.
And then TikTok, oh my God, that's
Loaded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
TikTok, all the book talkers, and we can sell 1 million books. I think the market is flooded, but you have to like it, and you have to have a way to do it too.
Yeah.
If you don't enjoy it, you shouldn't do it, or
Right.
just do Twitter or one of those.
Right. Oh, and also, you don't have to talk about your book. You can talk about the content of your book, or why you wrote your book, or something related to your book. Like, my mom was a major force in writing that first book, The Henna Artist, and so I would post pictures of my mom. Like, I wish my mom were still here, and then she could, learn about this new thing that's just come up. Or here's my mom in her saris, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things that you can talk about that are not the book. You're not constantly saying, buy my book, buy my book.
I did a lot of things about World War II, about women's roles. I found these old pictures, like from Bletchley Park or something, and I would post those and say, this inspired me. This inspired a scene. Or I used this, thing. There's a picture of a woman on a bicycle in front of Smith & Son. That was a German bookstore. With her, you can see it. And I was like, I'm saying, oh my God, I know I'm going to go there. And here's this woman. What's in her bag? What is she carrying? Is she carrying something? So you can use all the inspiration to and that's fascinating. I love to see that stuff myself.
Yeah. Okay, here's another part of it. And you do it or you don't do it because you enjoy it or you don't enjoy it. I answer every email, every direct message, everything that comes my way. And I'm probably crazy to do that, but it's really helped develop a following of people who are loyal because they know that I am responsive to them. And for me, that was just really important to have readers who felt like, they could ask me about anything. They could talk to me about anything. How do you become a writer? How do you do this? How do you do that? I think that all of that has been super, super helpful. And some writers don't like to interact with readers.
And they shouldn't, because maybe they're not good at it, I know some people, it's very good they don't. But also, right? We're not all, Alka here. But also, I know that if someone asks me again, where should I stay in Paris, which arrondissement, I go, I kill people everywhere, so how far from the murder scene do you want to be? And I have to stop being so, but it's kind of like, Paris, don't you get out? People come to Paris and you all want to see a certain part of Paris. My Paris or your Paris is different, from what, and I don't know what your tastes are or your budget or what you're really interested in. So it's hard to say, oh, stay here in Paris and do this in Paris. People live here, so you know that. But it's interesting, how do you respond in a nice way to say you hear what they're saying, but it's really a very personal thing. Where do you, where would you, what I like to go out and eat is not necessarily what you want to go out and eat.
Right.
And I know where you live now. So.
I get asked every day, can you recommend a hotel? And I go, sure, How do I do that?
Cara, show your map in your book.
Oh, in my book?
Yeah, show the map. So this,
Ooh.
yeah, that's the best.
This was commissioned. My publisher put some money in this map, this cartographer, and it is I think we took the 1941. It's not so different. 1942. It's a real, what do I want to say? Authentic geography here.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty darn cool, isn't it? I have maps in every book because I'm a mapaholic. But I mean, I think it was gorgeous because it's really, and in 3 Hours to Paris, we've got all the little, points of interest in the story too. So, but I think, look at Paris. It's not, so different. I mean, what is that saying? The more it changes, the more it's the same. But in French, c'est plus ça change. That, whatever.
Well, the streets have not really changed. I mean, some have become pedestrian, some have gotten wider, some have gotten narrower, but otherwise, and some names have changed along the way, that's for sure.
And the same thing in Jaipur. So my novels take place in Jaipur, and that was in 1955 and 69. And so people who live there now, who used to live there, who have lived there at some point, they say, wow, it feels like I'm there, because it hasn't changed that much. You see more Pizza Hut signs maybe, but it's basically, it smells the same, it feels the same, the people look almost the same, so.
Have you considered, or maybe you've already done this, a murder in Square Louis XVI?
Which arrondissement was that? I'm sure I killed someone there, but please.
I don't know what arrondissement it is. It's where Louis XVI was buried before they took him away. So
you mean the Chapel Expiatoire? The Chapel Expiatoire. Right. Yes, I have a scene. You need to read that book. Because they were exhumed from there. Yes, of course. Oh, yeah, and this wonderful building right across, there's a whole scene in there, And the name of
where is that?
It's in the 8th.
Right by St. August.
Yeah. Oh, I've already killed people there, but But I do. I mean, people say to me, I'll say something and they'll go, oh, what is that store? And I go, well, I know there's something in that courtyard. And they go, why? Do you know? I go, well, I wanted to see if a body would fit. But, because you have to check that out.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
I don't draw chalk marks. I do not draw a chalk. I do not do that. I stop.
But you do have to know, okay, how far is it from one place to another, from the cafe to, whatever point you're going to. You have to know how long it takes to get there. Will you take the tram? Will you go by foot? Will you go by taxi? There's all of these things you have to work out.
Is it plausible? Would it happen? Could
exactly.
What time of day was it?
Exactly. So I have a little confession to make. In my in my latest book, Perfumist in Paris, I made a lot of French mistakes. So I use a little bit of the French that I have, and I'm not a native French speaker, so I've made some mistakes. So every single day, I hear from a native French speaker, you have made this mistake, you have insulted my language, I will never read anything by you again. And so that I write back. I go, I'm really sorry. I humbly apologize. I wish that my editor had hired a French proofreader. Yeah, and now I know that that's something I will do. But I was just telling Brad today. I go, you know what I should do on social media? I should say, if you can find 10 French mistakes in the book, I will send you a free book.
Good idea.
And yes.
Good marketing.
Turning a negative into a positive. And then I said to Brad, I go, but Brad, I don't have enough books to give away to all the people who might be writing to me. All of you guys who speak French will probably write to me right away. But he said, well, then just do a limited number. So just say the first 100 people or whatever. So
the first 5.
That's such a good idea.
Why not?
Yeah.
I get those too. Right. Yeah. Yes.
So when they get turned into some sort of a screen adaptation, and they don't respect any of that at all, right? Like getting from one place to another, which we see.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Does that not make you as angry as it makes me?
Okay. Can I say one thing? Remember when the Da Vinci Code came out in French?
Yeah, he made a mistake.
He made a mistake.
How long it would have taken in the taxi? I noticed it right away.
Okay.
No way.
Okay. I was in line 1, the metro, and there was a Frenchman reading it in French. And I said, oh, is he going to you know, see it. And so I stayed like 5 stops beyond my stop, thinking he was going to throw the book down, and he didn't. So I don't know. I think the French version was corrected. I can only believe
It
that.
might have been.
I can only believe that.
Because in the film, of course, we're going the wrong way down Rue de Rivoli. And all that.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. That's like that classic scene from The Graduate where he's going the wrong way towards San Francisco. Yeah.
And Emily in Paris?
Oh, don't start. Don't.
No.
We don't talk about that here. But, you know, of course, Emily, if you are watching, we're happy to talk with you. Yes, Hillary.
I have a very mundane question. Both of you, do you hire somebody to help you with your websites, or do you do it yourself?
Yeah, I have a woman who does lots of crime writers' websites. She's brilliant, wonderful. I just say, please put all my stuff up, and she does.
I just go to GoDaddy and I do a web builder, so
Wow.
it's all just me. I mean, I should. It's piss poor. I should do a better website. But social media taking all of my time.
I think you like it because
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
and that's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
and that shows. So
Yeah. No, I like it. Okay.
Any other questions? We have lots of time.
We have lots of
We have
time.
15 we have 15 minutes.
I'll ask one more question. You're both traditionally published, I think.
Yeah.
Have you ever, from what I understand, it's very, it's much more prestigious to be traditionally published, but perhaps you can make more money per book if you self-publish. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But have either of you ever considered for future books self-publishing?
No, I never considered it, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm an Indian woman writing in the United States, and I wanted to be global. I wanted my work to be global. And one thing that I have learned through the publishing world is if you want your book, your screenplay, your movie, whatever it is, to go global, you start with the United States and Canada, and then you can go out. It's much harder to go, let's say for me to sell a book in India, that's about India, and for that to go global. Because the North American reach is huge. And everybody looks to America still. I know Paris is fabulous, but everybody still looks to America for trends and where things will go from here.
I don't know. I started writing in '93. I got published in '99, and so in that time, there was no Amazon. I mean, it didn't exist. Okay, and we didn't have that. It was called vanity publishing, and I just was happy to get published. And then they wanted another. My editor called me and said, where's After Murder in the where's Amy LeDuc going next? And I said, excuse me? And she said, well, with the dog and that man she met, and the apartment on the other side. And wait, you are writing a series, aren't you? And I lied and said, of course I am. So I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
And I don't know if I do now, but I just kept going. And I did one book at a time, one contract, one book, that was the way it was. I was just so honored to be published. I mean, I have friends who started off same time I did, traditionally published. They got dropped, and they were mid-list authors, and then they went the route of, I'll tell you, Robert Dugoni from Seattle.
Oh yeah,
He's good.
he's big.
Bob was traditionally published. I mean, Bob is good. Bob's from San Mateo, and I know him. But Bob got dropped, and because the house had big expectations for him, I guess he had big advances, and he went Amazon, and I mean, he's out it's incredible.
Yeah.
So everybody's different, and he's a success story. Reese Bowen, another good friend of mine, also went the Amazon route, but she does traditionally published. So you saw Reese, and yeah. And Reese is just writing constantly, but it's different now. But also this platform that you brought up, if you've got the platform and you're not, making what a traditionally published house thinks you should be making, you can do it all with
Right.
Amazon. Bob Dugoni is incredible, right? So
Okay, but that said, when you self-publish, you are your own publicist, you are your own editor, you're your own marketing person, you're your own distributor. So that is huge. I mean, I think if you go through Amazon route, they will distribute it for you.
Right.
But you are your own everything. When you go the traditional route, all we have to do is write. And then there are editors who edit our books, and there's our publicists and our marketing departments and our cover design people, and then the sales staff and the distributors. So yes, you get less royalty per book or per format, but your volume is much bigger, much, much bigger.
I know writers though who couldn't get published themselves, and then as a result of the book being out, then were able to achieve getting
Yeah,
publisher.
very
That's-
few, but far between, but yes, a couple of them.
And
do
that's
make it.
happening. That what never happened before.
Yeah.
But again, you got to have a platform. Who's going to find your book? Who's going to know your, you know, if you're an
Yeah.
expert winemaker and you can write about that, that's different. Or,
Yeah.
Does everybody know Ann Ma, who wrote,
Yes. Well, yeah.
right? I mean, Ann knew, food writer for New York Times and lives in the 7th. Okay. And I've talked with her about this. But then she wrote this Jacqueline Kennedy book, which is lovely. Because she wrote an article for the New York Times about Jacqueline Kennedy's 1 year here after, it's the university here anyway. And she went to, so she wrote this, and they said, her agent called her and said, they want you to write a book. You know, somebody's offering you a contract.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely book. And so it was really interesting how that happened. But that's Ann Ma, who writes for the New York Times. I mean,
Yeah.
wonderful as she is. I mean, she's got some cred, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? So
So she has a platform.
she has a platform,
Yeah.
you know? Yes.
I'm sorry, but why don't you like the 7th?
I killed people there. I killed him in the Champ de Mars. And I told Alka, and she doesn't believe me, I could not find a cafe open on Sunday afternoon. And I was like, what is this?
That's
No.
the real reason. She
That's the
couldn't find
real
a
reason.
cafe.
It was the dead zone. I'm sorry, but
She's also used to the Marais.
I'm used to the Marais. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And doesn't Rick Steves, he likes the Rue Claire, which is like, that's in the 7th, and I don't understand why.
I don't understand that, but hey, it's okay.
Yeah, no,
I mean, I don't know. A French friend who inspired Murder in Belleville, actually, he was living there. He goes, I hate living here, French guy. I hate living here, but I get a free fonctionnaire flat. And he goes, but there's nothing going on Sundays. And I go,
Huh.
I just went, okay, Bertrand, I believe you.
Brenda and you, speak up. They live in the 7th.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's a good arrondissement for families,
Yeah.
you know, with children and the schools there. But there's a lot of embassies, and it is boring.
Boring. Well, the 15th has a lot of families because Hillary told me, and I really had a hard time with the 15th. I put it at, this kind of length. And then I really got into the 15th. Really liked that, and that suited the story. I kind of fall in love with every area, even the 7th, okay, a little bit. But there's something when you live with that place,
Yeah,
right? I mean, you
yeah.
fall in love with it, and
Yeah.
it's just, you get
Yeah.
it. You hope you get it, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't write about places you hate because the reader will hear that. They will totally hear that. Oh, and the same thing about characters. If you write about characters you hate, and that and when they don't have any dimensionality to them, but they're just the villain, readers cotton onto that too, and they go, that just feels like a two-dimensional character. So even villains have to have lives and reasons for why they do what they do. And I think we have to be really careful to make every character feel like a three-dimensional character.
Exactly. We don't want any Bond villains, Yeah. We want a good villain, because it's kind of like the dark and the light, right? The villain could be the fallen angel or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. They just got tipped to the other edge. What are the courses here that people take to become writers? Are there creative?
Oh, there's a zillion courses that take place here because this is writer's heaven.
Right?
I mean, everyone I know is a writer.
Well,
Yeah.
there's Weiss. Weiss is still doing workshops. Weiss.
Yeah, they're June, they're summer.
Summer
Yeah.
There's writers workshops.
Yeah.
There's several of them.
Because I think it's hard to become a writer without support. You really need the support of other people who are writing. You need their critiques, and then you want to critique them to learn more about, how you can write better. I think it's really hard to go it alone. And
Have you been in a writers group, or you just use your in-house editor?
my in-house editor. But I have been in writers groups before, and of course that MFA program, you're constantly critiquing other people's work. They're critiquing yours, so that was really, really helpful. Yeah.
So this is the first time you've been together?
Yes.
And it won't be the last.
Yes. And we're getting married.
In Paris.
Don't tell her husband.
Yeah.
Don't kill her off.
No, but we saw each other in San Diego, kind of in
Yeah.
the other end
Hi.
of the room. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's an excellent synergy.
Ah, yay. And did you notice we're also color coordinated, black and white?
Our shoes. Look at our shoes. kind of.
Metallic shoes.
Metallic shoes. We planned this.
Yes. Yes.
Unplanned. Yes.
But Adrian, how wonderful of you to put this together. It's amazing.
So much fun, you have no idea. I'm just sitting back taking all this in, as all of you. And so, anybody have any other questions? We're like 5 to 5.
I could ask another question, but
Sure.
I don't know if it will ever end.
Okay, what's that?
So I took off and I tried to read. I'm trying to improve my French, so I tried to read books in French, and I looked at the recent Nobel winners in French. And so Patrick Modiano, Annie Ernaux,
yeah.
this year, and their approach to writing, and I can say for both of them, is it doesn't flow. There are gaps. There are missing pieces. There are. Annie Ernaux is you're reading her diary practically in Les Années, and she never uses the word I, and it's all about her.
That's brilliant.
Patrick Modiano.
No, that's difficult.
Yeah, it is. It's a difficult sequence, and I wonder if you looked at other styles.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, can I just jump in? My book group met when I was down south, and we were discussing Annie Ernaux, and one of the Maggie in my book group said the same thing. How can the book be all about her, but she doesn't use I? And she had the same argument.
It's a fantastic book.
Well, she said the same things that you did, and we said she's reinventing the memoir. And then that wonderful Rachel Cusk wrote in the New York Times. Please read that article about Annie Ernaux. Just came out, or someone said anyway.
Sorry.
Right? Rachel Cusk wrote, and it was really interesting. She talks a lot about that. But I love Patrick Modiano, and I don't care about anything else.
Okay,
But
but I have to say that you see, I learned how to take the I out of the story.
Oh.
Okay, because this was International Living's how to put forth a good story by allowing the reader to place themselves in your shoes by taking the I out, so that it's not about you, it's about them in a way. But it's very difficult to do. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but in my own writing, I always go back and edit and take the I out as much as possible.
Oh.
So the way to do it, for example, is you can either say, the coffee was, you can either say, I thought the coffee was delicious, or you can say the coffee was delicious.
Ah, okay.
So you still from your point of view, but the I's not there. So, but it's,
That makes sense.
But to write an entire memoir without it is tough.
Yeah.
Because there's sometimes you just have to.
Yeah.
Or you can do it in second person. You.
Yeah, you
Or,
could,
or
right,
first
that's
person
right.
plural, we.
That's right.
She doesn't.
I do that
she doesn't, It's as if you're looking at the memoir, and she never.
Yeah.
It's this.
Well, one thing that is really central, I think, to a good story, and I think both Cara and I do this religiously, is that our setting becomes a character.
Character. Setting is a character. Yes.
Yeah. And so, you know, your setting has a feeling, it has a place, it has social context, it has political personalities. Yeah. So it's really important if you're going to write about a setting that, you know, you really work hard on making that setting into a character.
Yeah, because people say to me, I smell Paris, you know, I say that's my job, to put you in Amy LeDuc's heels. Even men can wear them in my stories. It's okay, you know. And one time, remember Patricia, who used to do the wonderful salons?
Yes. LaPlante Collins, Patricia.
Who sadly passed away. I remember doing a salon at her when she lived on the Ile Saint Louis, and a man came up to me and he said, "Sorry, it's so warm in here." He said, "My wife reads your books," and I went, "Oh. Okay, thanks."
Yeah.
He goes, "I read them too." I go, "Thank you." And he goes, "You know what I like about Amy LeDuc? She never lets up and she never dresses down." And I went, "Can I use that?" And he goes, "Sure." So I like that. She never lets up and she never dresses down. Because she is, you know, she inhabits that. And I like that he felt he could, you know, he liked that. You know, my books aren't just for women. You know, I mean, I hope anybody can read them.
Yeah.
But where her in her world on
Yeah.
Ile Saint Louis, and all the people in her detective agency, and the dog, and the whole, you know, and the guy who's the cheesemonger on the corner, and all that. I mean, I love that. And I based it on a real cheesemonger who's moved now. But
I am glad to see so many men here, because I think mostly when a book is written by a woman, it's considered women's fiction, and a lot of men won't read it. And but I do think that they're secret readers of women's fiction, because oftentimes at my book signings, you know, the couple will come together, man is standing behind, and the woman is putting the book in front of me, and she'll say, "He reads your books." So men, thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate your patronage as well.
Of course we do.
And by the way, our books are fabulous for Mother's Day, for birthdays, and for holidays.
Yeah, and for that gift for that uncle of yours, you just don't know what to get him. You know, World War II. They all love World War II. So yeah. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, Willow.
Thank you so much. Thanks to everybody. See you here next month. Yay. To second Tuesday. Who's on? Do you remember? Is it Janet? Hallstrand, I think. I think so. Okay, more writers, more books.
Yay.
All right, everybody, have a great rest of the day, rest of the week, rest of the month.
Thanks, Cara.